I'd like to introduce Janet Flint. She is a move manager and organizer with Space and Time Organized. Janet started the business in 2014. She's helped many seniors and younger families move, downsize, and organize to live more easily and efficiently in their home or office. So Janet, why should someone hire a move manager?
Well, I would like to share with you, my mother would have loved this service. She was an Army wife, and for a while, I think they were moving every 3 years. So I think of my mother, especially when I'm unpacking for other people. A move manager lets the client focus on everything else in their busy lives. They can relax a little knowing that someone who cares about the move is on top of the checklists. We line up decisions in the right order, and those choices set other things in motion. Most importantly, I need to understand my client's goals, and today I'm going to share with you 3 stories about different move clients that I've worked with. The first was a move of a 2,600 square foot Oakland View home. They wanted to make improvements and get it on the market ASAP. The second was helping a client with physical challenges similar to a stroke. He wanted to get the house ready for sale, downsized by over 50% of his possessions, packing up all his personal items so that he could live there and show it as professionally as possible. The third was a client who left a lasting impression on me through her poetry. So every job has competing challenges, and here's what was going on at the Oakland View home. The husband worked at home and didn't want to be interrupted. So they said that the missus and her organizer would handle all the details and then come to him with choices only if he needed to be involved. They wanted to put household goods into storage for 2 to 3 months while they sell here and find something to move into in New Mexico. And the home is on a super steep driveway. Part of it's a 45% grade, I'm guessing at that number, but there are a couple of hairpin turns, and that really limited the size of truck that could get up to the house. The house also needed a lot of work. This family wanted 3 bids on each item. The realtor gave them bids by trusted contractors, but just 1 bid for each improvement. Searching for qualified contractors in this market is challenging. The good ones are very busy these days. And the couple asked me to help them find licensed insured contractors for each area of work. They wanted to see comparable bids, apples to apples, and that's a time-consuming process. Ultimately, they did work with the contractors that the realtor had a relationship with. Still, the work that we did together gave them the confidence that they needed to move forward. And also, it's important that they were a family that agreed to my COVID-19 risk reduction protocol. With this virus, everything that involves people involves some risk. And by signing my waiver and protocol document, they know how seriously I take this. Some of the practices that I use are keeping the windows open with lots of circulating fresh air, maintaining 6 feet of distance or more, not handling the same objects any more than we have to, and wearing masks and washing hands a lot. Excuse me. So what had to be done first? We secured a date with a moving company. Some moving companies these days are booked 3 to 5 weeks out. We compared packing and moving surfaces for their price, insurance, licensing, reputation, and the date available. Some movers wanted to do the estimate by video, which is fine considering the COVID-19 environment. But since the driveway is challenging, we definitely needed a company who was willing to come out and see the situation. We compared container services versus full service moving and storage. And they ultimately went with the container service, mostly because of the price was so much better. So we needed a realistic estimate of how many storage pods were needed. So we asked each of the moving companies who gave us an estimate, how many 16-foot containers will we need? And if anybody's going into a container move, I would recommend that you get 1 more container than you think you'll need, since you only get charged for what you use. And on the day that you need another container, they may not have one on hand. We compared pricing, insurance, and reputation. For this family, storage location was important. They wanted their goods to stay in the Bay Area until they were ready to leave. And now I have some photos to share with you. Share. Okay, so they went with the pod service, mostly because the containers are stored in a warehouse, not exposed to the sun or wet weather. And I thought I could advance the slides. One more second. Well, that's no fun. Oh, I just have to roll my mouse. There you go. That little live action. What's next? Okay, so I do not do the packing on these moves. I can pack anything, but the packing process is done much more cost efficiently by the packing team. These guys are real professionals. I work with a number of different companies and they all take great pride in the work. They are fantastic at creating a stable load. And my job is to get them ready for packing day. I provide the family with a plan and take as many of the to-do items off of their plate that they will let me do. We make sure they know that the family knows where their important papers are, and the things that they need on the first day in a new home or hotel room are with them and not in the truck. So preparing household items for moving day. I start by tagging items in the house that are not going to be packed for the move. I use a colored tape system with a color code sign on the wall that accomplishes a few things. The client can look at each room and see evidence of the decisions that have already been made. And you don't have to pick things up and move them around and put them in different corners. The color tagging takes care of that. All of the support people can see what items apply to them, like items for consignment, things that are going to friends, and what goes for donation and recycling. In this move, we had a couple of action items, things that required third-party participation, like getting furniture back from a repair shop, and then art that needed to be created. Very conveniently on this move, all donations went to her housekeeper from El Salvador. And then the hauling was going to be taken care of by the realtor after all the home improvements were done. So now I'm going to switch gears and stop the share. Am I back? Next, I wanted to tell you about the project working with a client with some physical disabilities. And here's what made that job a little different. He had limited use of one hand and he gets around, but very slowly. So he needed lots of help. Fortunately, he has lots of friends who are assisting him with different things. He also had a limited budget and wanted to use his generous friends volunteering for as many tasks as they could take. That put me more in the role of a hands-off project manager. Excuse me. I helped to inventory, prioritize, make lists, and a timeline. He needed to sell as much as he could and donate the rest. We used Craigslist. I created the listings and asked buyers to provide a phone number. When those emails came in, I would forward them to the client so he could call them and discuss the sale. To avoid scams and spam, I never reply to a Craigslist ad by email. We had an estate sale. It went really well. I did the advertising and hung the signs. His friends came and helped with the sale, creating a social distancing culture, and they handled the money for him. And then the last thing he asked me to do were to give him supplies, estimates on how much supplies he would need, the number of boxes, paper, tape, moving blankets, and straps to prevent the load shifting. He also used a pod container service, and this one was 1-800-PACK-RAT. So I want to wrap up with a story about a senior. Her name is June Stoddart, and her poetry. I had the privilege of helping a senior gentleman move from one Bay Area assisted living location to another. We moved his furniture, clothing, artwork, and books. And the most important thing we moved was a person who was not present. We moved the things around Hugh that reminded him of his wife, June. June Stoddart was a sister, a daughter, a wife, and a mother, and her story lives on through her family and through a collection of 42 poems that I got to scan and preserve for her family. I've been given permission from June Stoddard to publish some of the poems by June Stoddard on my website. And I put a link to my website in the chat for those of you that are on the Zoom meeting. And that's my presentation. I have time for questions.
So the floor is open for questions.
This is Cheryl. I don't have a question as much as a testimonial. So Janet worked with one of my customers that was elderly, disabled, had the most unique circumstances with a hoarder that lived with her. And she was able to move the woman over a weekend, get rid of the hoarder, and get her into assisted living. So thank you so much. Her expertise goes way beyond moving.
Thank you, Cheryl, very much.
And that's really saying something, because from the realtor's point of view, I have realtor friends who have had to pay $20,000 to $30,000 to have a hoarder removed from the basement of a property that they were trying to be a good neighbor and help somebody out, and this person decided to never leave. But so you're being able to do that in a gracious way and successfully is saying something fantastic. Kudos to you on that one.
Thank you very much.
Janet, we have a question in the chat regarding the blue tags, stay with house. Is that for a yard sale or some other purpose?
No. We had to use the blue tag stay with house for the things like the architectural drawings, manuals for electronics that were part of the house.
Okay. I know I've moved a lot, even just in the past year, and I love your labeling system, because every time I've moved, I had designated places to put things for sale or giving away. And almost every time, 99% of the moves, those things still ended up back in my house and did not get out of my house. It was very frustrating. So I like your tag system.
Absolutely. I have one question. Have you ever used the company Clutter? You know, they have the same kind of concept where they have the boxes. And if you wanted to just maybe remodel a room and get rid of some stuff for a short period of time, and then they bring it back to you. Is that the same?
I haven't used them.
Okay.
So do they pack it, or do they just come and get the boxes?
I have no idea, but from what I understand is if you can store your stuff there, but let's say you wanted your fine china for a particular event, it's all digitally labeled. So you could say, hey, come bring me my china. I'm having a thing on Sunday.
That sounds like a wonderful service. I haven't used it, but I should know more about it.
Janet, I have a question about what's behind you.
Well, my grandfather was an artist, and these are 4 of his oil paintings. They're all oil. He was an immigrant from Norway, came over here as a young man, went to the Chicago Art Institute, started his career in New York, and part of what he did were portraits. This is a portrait of his wife. It's actually a full length, so her dress is folded up underneath the back of the painting.
Wow.
And then his career changed dramatically when the Depression hit. So he went into advertising illustration, which was not what he had planned for his career. But he continued to paint, and through the 50s, he moved into some more graphic, modernistic and watercolor work, which is very different from the oil work that you'd see here.
We have another question in the chat for you. Thank you for telling us about your beautiful historic artwork.
Thank you for asking.
What areas do you service in the Bay Area?
I serve the East Bay. It's really easy for me to go to Vallejo, Marin. If there's work down below Hayward, I will help you find another organizer. If there's work in San Francisco, I'll help you find another organizer. So that's my general area that I serve.
Contra Costa too?
Contra Costa, Alameda County. For me, it's like a big circle around the Briones Reservoir area. But if it's down Fremont and below, I will probably help you find another organizer. And I'm part of a professional association called National Association of Professional Organizers. So we have a broad network. I can even help you find an organizer in New Mexico.
Great.
Are there any more
Janet,
questions?
I have a client who is wanting help tidying her bookshelves and things of that nature. Do you focus on that, or do you focus more on the moving and packing?
I love all different size projects, and so yeah, I do the small job. I can help with the tidying and the beautifying. It seems like most of my career has been, the kind of the bigger, dirtier work, like garages and basements. And moves have become a greater part of my work as the 5 or 6 years have passed. Would she like to organize them by color or by size or by author? There's so many ways to go with books.
She's a poet, so I don't know actually. But she also reviews books all the time, so she's overloaded. And I tidied one bookcase and I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I'd like to refer her to you if that's your wheelhouse.
Fantastic. I'd love to meet her.
Okay, a lot of good questions and a great presentation. Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you all.